1960s and 70s, extraordinary steps were taken towards equality of the sexes. During the 60s, women were expected to marry in their early 20s, start a family, and devote her life to homemaking. The average wife spent 55 hours a week on domestic chores. The woman did not have any legal rights to any of her husband's earnings or property. It was also difficult to file for divorce as a woman. Substantial evidence of wrongdoing was needed in order for divorce to even be considered by the courts. Over the course of history, women had been viewed inferior to their male counterparts. For years, women were designated to be homemakers. Their sole job was to cook, clean, and care for their children. As the modern day progressed, these standard images of women were broken by many strong individuals who have greatly impacted history as we know it today. These social, economic, and political changes did not take effect until the 1960s and 1970s, but their effect would forever leave an impression on our everyday lives. Only 38% of American women in 1960 worked. Their jobs were largely limited to teacher, nurse, or secretary. Women only accounted for 6% of American doctors, 3% of lawyers, and less than 1% of engineers. Clearly, there was a major flaw in the 1960s American society. As a reaction to the unjust happenings, Betty Friedan wrote a book titled The Feminine Mystique. Within the pages, she captured the frustration and even the despair of a generation of college-educated housewives who felt trapped and unfulfilled. Friedan's work had such an impact that it credited with sparking the second wave of the American feminist movement. Decades earlier, the first wave had pushed for women's suffrage, resulting in the passage of the 19th Amendment that gave the woman the rights to vote in 1920. Now, a new generation would take up the call for equality beyond the law and into women's lives.
The feminist movement of the 1960s and 70s originally focused on creating workplace equality, such as access to better jobs and salary equity, through the means of anti-discrimination laws. In 1964, Representative Howard Smith of Virginia proposed to add a prohibition on gender discrimination into the Civil Rights Act that was under consideration. He was greeted by laughter from other congressmen, but with leadership from a female representative, Martha Griffiths of Michigan, the law passed with the amendment intact. However, it quickly became clear that the newly established Equal Employment Opportunity Commission would not enforce the law's protection of women workers, and so a group of feminists, including Betty Friedan, decided to found an organization that would fight gender discrimination through the courts and legislatures. In the summer of 1966, they launched the National Organization for Women, also known as NOW, which went on to persuade Congress for pro-equality laws and assist women seeking legal aid as they battled workplace discrimination in the courts. Betty Friedan's generation sought not to dismantle the current system, but to open it up for women's participation on a public and political level. However, there was a more radical women's liberation movement that was determined to completely overthrow the patriarchy that they believed was oppressing every facet of women's lives, including their private lives. They popularized the idea that the personal is political, that women's political inequality had equally important personal ramifications, encompassing their relationships, sexuality, birth control, abortion, clothing image, body image, and roles in marriage, housework, and childcare. Overall, the different wings of the feminist movement sought women's equality on both a political and personal level. The feminist movement was not rigidly structured or led by a single figure or group. As one feminist wrote, the women's movement is a non-hierarchical one. It does things collectively and experimentally. In fact, the movement was deeply divided between young and old, upper class and lower class, conservative and radical. Betty Friedan was determined to make the movement a respectable part of mainstream society and distance herself from what she termed the bra-burning anti-man politics of orgasm school of feminism. Younger feminists, for their part, distrusted the older generation and viewed Now as stuffy and out of touch. Now's demands and organizational style weren't radical enough for us, some claimed.
There was never really a clear leader of the movement. The most assertive women promoted themselves as leaders, prompting attacks from other women who believed that all members of the movement should be equal in status. Nonetheless, women like Gloria Steinem and Germaine Greer attracted media attention through both their popular writings and their appealing image. They played a key role representing feminism to the public and the media, providing attractive examples of women who were feminists without fitting the negative stereotypes of stiff, unappealing, man-hating shrews. Feminist leaders were also inspired by the civil rights movement, through which many of them gained civic organizing experience. At the same time, black women played a key role in the civil rights movement, especially through local organizations, but were shut out of leadership roles. Meanwhile, the women's anti-war movement was joined by a new generation of more radical young women protesting not only the Vietnam War, but also the way in which the traditional women's peace movement condoned and even enforced the gender hierarchy in which men made war and women wept. On college campuses, women joined in the leftist student movement, but their efforts to incorporate women's rights into the new left were ignored or met with condescension from male student leaders. At one New Politics conference, the chairman told a feminine activist, "Cool down, little girl. We have more important things to do here than talk about women's problems." As a result, women split off from the movement that marginalized them in order to form their own movement. By the end of the 1970s, activists burned out, and the women's movement fragmented, but the services they founded, such as rape crisis centers, women's shelters, and health clinics, were integrated into mainstream as cities, universities, and religious organizations provided program funding. Today, the gains of the feminist movement, women's equal access to education, their increased participation in politics and the workplace, their access to abortion and birth control, the existence of resources to aid domestic violence and rape victims, and the legal protection of women's rights are often taken for granted. While feminists continue to strive for increased equality, as Betty Friedman wrote, "What used to be the feminist agenda is now an everyday reality. The way women look at themselves, the way other people look at women is completely different than it was 30 years ago. Our daughters grow up with the same possibilities as our sons."
I'm Laurie Grayson, and I was born in the 60s, and I think that the women's rights movement is extremely important to help stabilize the playing field for men and women. It was unfair that women weren't allowed to have jobs outside the home and weren't allowed to dream and to become whomever they wanted to be. Staying home and taking care of the house was not fulfilling for everyone, and they should be able to fulfill other things. And also, when they did work, they should get equal pay like men, and I believe that's still an ongoing issue. But now at least they can have these jobs and choose the path of life that they want, and not be delegated to traditional ways of life.
Hi, my name is Susan Dawn Tremont, and regarding the women's movement, I think that was such a critical time in our history for so many reasons. I mean, it gave women options, choices, and without that, they would have felt the need they had to stay home and just raise their kids. And I think what's made me a richer person is the fact that I had the option to do both, and I have done both. And I don't know where we'd be without it. I think it's made the world a better place. I think it's created change, opportunity on so many levels, and I'm a big fan.